Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
So when the game is set up, you're going to have this tracker across the bottom, which will keep track of how many explosions there are. Once you've had your 7th explosion, you immediately die. You're going to set up these 4 here in this way. You have a door here. And then you're going to roll a die for each one of these, and you'll put these out. If you roll a 6, you re-roll. I'm just trying to do this quickly, and you'll have these out on the board. Each player will get one of these turn tiles. This is going to track your fatigue. If your fatigue ever gets to 16, you immediately die. And if you get past one of these, so if I'm on, say, 6 and there's a 5, I can no longer enter a room with 5 dice, with a 5 pip. So I couldn't enter this room anymore. As your fatigue goes, you become better or worse. You're also going to have a tracker down here at the bottom that you'll keep track of your battle score, and I'll explain how that works. Each player will also get 5 of these action tokens, and these are going to track it when you take your actions. A lot of games forget to have these. So when you take an action, you just flip this over to the use side, and you can just count this and how many more actions you have, so you can never forget. I wish more games included that. In addition, each person is going to get a random character and a random item. I guess you could draft these if you wanted to. So she has 6 actions instead of 5, so you give her another action token. You may lower the fire dice by 2 once per turn. So each game, you're going to have 2 random powers that you'll be able to utilize. You'll take your character meeple and you'll place it here, and then you're ready to play. Now, each round of the game, when you start out, you're going to put a tile out on the board. In your first turn, you will put 2. I'm going to ignore that for now because I just want to show you how to play the game. But just know that your first turn, you're going to put 2 out. So what you're going to do, you're going to take a tile and you can put it out on the board wherever you want. You can see here where these blue lights are. These are doors. So you just have to make sure the doors line up. I cannot place this here because there's a door leading into a wall. So let's say I just put that there. And I would take a die, a yellow die, because it has a yellow 2 there. It's a yellow 2 pip. Then I would draw one of these tiles out of the bag at random, whatever they are. It's a 4 skeleton, and then he would go right there. And that would be the first step of each turn. The second step is I can start using my action. Now everybody gets 5 actions except for one character gets 6. Once again, you'll be utilizing these just to track them, but here are the possible actions that you can do. First thing you do is spend 1 action and you can move 1 space. That's called walking. If you move into a space, you will lose fatigue or gain fatigue. So in this case, I walk from something that has 0 to a 5. So 5 minus 0 is 5. I would move up 5 on the tracker. If I was moving from the 4 into the 5, I would only go up 1. So my tracker would go up 1. So you subtract it when you walk into a room. But no, the starting spot right here is always 0. That's one thing you can do. You can also run, which is moving 2 spaces for 1 action. You gain 2 more fatigue than normal. So if I went through this 5 to 3, I wouldn't gain any fatigue. 3 to 2, I wouldn't. But let's say I was going this way. I would gain 1 for moving into this room. And then 5 minus 3 is 2 for 2 additional. So that's 3 that I would normally get if I was walking. Because I was running, I had 2 to that. And so I would take 5 fatigue total. That's how running works. For each action token, I can reduce this. So I'm already here. I can make this to 4. That's 1 action. I can make this down to a 3. That is an action. If it ever gets down to 0, if I'm on 1, I get another one, then the dice is simply taken off the board. I can also spend an action to get rid of a deckhand. These are these white skulls. So let's say I have 1 in my room. I can spend an action to get rid of 1 from the room that I'm in. Or I could spend an action to get 1 from an adjacent room. So I could get rid of this deckhand and get them off the board. That would be 2 actions to spend. 1 to get rid of this one, and 1 to get rid of that one. Now there's 30 of these in the game. If they're ever on the board, all 30, and I need to draw 1 and put 1 on the board, and I cannot, then I will lose the game. Now as you get these skeletons, I'll show you how combat works. There are going to be things on the other side. So if I have something in the room I'm in, I can spend an action and pick these up. I'll go over what these treasures do later, but just know that if something's in your room and you want to pick it up, it costs an additional action. I can always rest if I'm in a room. I can lower my fatigue level by 2 by spending an action. So once again, spend one of my action tokens, flip it over in the room that I'm in, and I can reduce my fatigue by 2, which will help me be able to enter certain rooms and not die if it gets all the way to the end. Now, one thing I can do is I can spend an action and increase my battle strength. So each way I increase costs an additional action. I'll explain what this does later, but just know that's how it will increase. At the beginning of the game, we were all given random item cards. If at any point in the game I don't want this item card anymore, perhaps there's something else that I would rather have, I can spend an action, give this up, and take one of the unchosen item cards from the beginning of the game. They will all be placed face up near the board. After I use all my actions, however I see fit, then it will be time for the bad guys to go. The bad guys will be pulling from this deck. You just take the top card of the deck and you do what it says. In this case, there's a 5 on it. It's red and yellow. So every 5 on the board will become a 6. In this case, there are none. If I had a 5 here, let's just say there was, and I pulled over this card, all red and yellows will increase, and this will increase to a 6. If a die ever gets to 6, as in this example, then the room would explode and you would move this tracker to the first spot. Or if it was on the first spot, it would go to the second spot. What happens at this point is every room adjacent to it with a door will then increase. So let me give you an example. Let's pretend this is a 5. This card is pulled, so I have to increase every red and yellow 5. So this would become a 6. Well, this is going to explode at this point. I would increase my tracker here by 1. Getting closer, if it gets to the end, we will all die. And then every room, which is only this one, will increase by 1 pip. There were a tile here and here. They would also increase. There's no die here, so nothing will increase. Then you take this die off. You flip this over. And now this room is impassable, and it will block all movement. You can no longer move through that room. If by doing this, it cuts off where you can get to treasure and it cuts off your path. Let's say this is all the tiles in the game, which it would not be, and a pirate was over here, you can no longer escape, then all pirates would lose the game. Let's talk about some other effects that might come up. So it is possible to have this, and then what you would do with the arrows around the trapdoor is any room with a trapdoor that has a deckhand in it would then send another deckhand to any adjacent one with a door, as long as it has fewer. So let's say it was set up like this, and we triggered this card now with this symbol. This one would get one, and this one would not get one because they don't have fewer than this. If this was the arrangement, and now this card came out, we're utilizing this one. Here is the trapdoor. This one would not get more because it doesn't have less. This one has less, so another one would come out. Keeping in mind, if you ever need to place one of those deckhands out and you don't have one, you lose the game. You will also see stuff like this with a skeleton on it. Very easy to do. At that point, if there was a skeleton out, he would simply move towards the nearest pirate. So if we had a skeleton here and the skeleton movement, so first thing we would do, because it's a 3, we would increase all 3s that are on the board, red and yellow, to 4. This is a yellow, so it would become a 4. And then the pirate, or the skeletons, would move towards the nearest pirate right there, which would immediately cause a battle. I'm going to show you how combat works later. You also have this symbol, which is a trapdoor with no arrows. So once again, I would take all the 1s and increase them to 2s that are yellows. The reds would not move. And then if it has a trapdoor, I would bring another deckhand out. Keeping in mind that if any deckhands come out and we cannot place them, we would lose the game. If at any point 3 5s, all 3 5 cards are out and have been discarded, you take all of the pirate cards that have been, you shuffle the back deck together. That way the 5 cards are always in the deck. The last thing I want to show you and talk to you about is combat. So each of these bad guys will have a goodie on the back. In this case, it's a cutlass. But it could have treasure, or it could have grog in it. I'll get to that in a second. So this has a 4 on it, which means his battle strength is 4. So what you're going to do is you're going to roll this dice, and I rolled a 1. And then you would go to your player board, let's say this is my character and it was on a 4. I would have to spend all of this plus 4 to my 1 is 5 in order to beat his 4. If this had been on 3 and I spent it all, my score would be 3 plus 1 is 4 plus any item cards I had would be equal, and I would beat him. So long as it's equal, I beat him. But the trick to this is wherever this is at, I have to use them all, even if it's overkill. So knowing when to use this is very important. If you were to lose to him, then you would take additional fatigue. So let me explain the back of these. So this is a cutlass. This is a sword you can have. So when you get this, you immediately add it to your battle. And now your minimum is always +1. You can never go back down. So the more of those that you have, the stronger your character will be as a fighter. You can also get this grog that you can pick up. This one has 5. So when you decide to utilize it, your fatigue would be increased by 5 or decreased. So if my fatigue was at 8, I drank that 5 grog, it would go back up to 3, giving myself more fatigue. The most important one are these guards, and because this is how you're going to win the game. When you flip these over, you're going to see a treasure. So you'll be able to beat these guys. They're usually more powerful, and they never move. So when you beat this guy, you have to spin an action to pick up the treasure, and this will be put on your player board. Once you have this treasure, all you can do is walk, rest, or swap your item card. Now the trick to walking with this thing, let me get some of this out of here, is that normally when you walk from an area to another area, you subtract. So if I was walking from this area down to here, I would take 5 minus 3, and I would take 2 fatigue. But when I'm carrying treasure, I always just take the fatigue of the room I walk into, in this case 5. So you're going to take a lot more fatigue when you're walking with this thing. So it may take some teamwork for somebody to come here and eliminate this or reduce it. So when I'm walking, I don't take enough fatigue or something bad would happen to me. So let me go over how to win. The way you win the game is you get a number of these treasure tokens out to your boat based on your difficulty. So 4, 5, or 6. That's how you win the game. How you lose the game is if the explosion marker ever gets up. You need to place a deckhand on the board, and you cannot. If a room tile, when it blows up, traps you so you can't get out. Or if enough treasures are destroyed that you cannot win the game. So if there are not enough of these left and you can't win the game, then you would. If all of the pirates die, you also lose. So that's the ways that you can win or lose the game. I hope I've done a good job of explaining kind of how it works, but let me go over a turn really fast. On your turn, you will place one of these tiles down, making sure the doors always match. You will put a die with that pip out, and then from the bag you will draw one of these tokens to place on this tile. Then you will take your actions, which are normally 5 actions, which can be run, walk, rest, pick something up, etc. If you're ever in a space with a bad guy, you must immediately do combat. Then at the end, you'll draw one of the bad guy cards from the deck, and usually you'll raise the fire or put additional tokens out. You continue to do that until you either win or you lose. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate you tuning in. If you liked it, please like it and hit that little subscribe button. That really helps out the channel, lets us know that you're getting the videos that you want. If you agreed or disagree with what I said, feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I promise that I will comment back. Thanks for watching, and everybody else, keep playing.